did in the end and win this battle against Goliath. Because why? He was preparing him in the field long before he got to the point where he had to come against this big giant called Goliath. So in the process, God already knows, Pastor, you just brought this good point up. He already know who the one is going to be that's strong enough, that's going to be able to take care of that situation. You might think it was going to be this one. You might have thought it may have been Nay. It may have thought it might have been Fred. But God said, no, it's going to be Cheryl. Now, she may not have thought she was strong enough to even do it. They thought David brothers was wondering why he coming down there bothering them. What you down here for? He coming down and he admired his brothers. But he was the one that was chosen. Because God had already been preparing him, because he had already been a shepherd. He had already been caring for sheep. So it's something when you don't even realize you're already operating in the gift that God has already called you to do. So you're kind of already doing it before you can even get started in life. And sometimes you may be wondering, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? What am I here for? Well, you might look at the things that you're already doing as something that you're pretty good at. That can kind of give you a clue as to where you're supposed to be and where God is planting you to be and what you're capable of handling. Because everybody can't take care of a sick person. Why? Why do you say that? Because you have to have some patience. You got to have some love. You got to be able to be flexible. You have to be able to feed them when necessary. There's a lot of things that goes into caring for sheep. How many people? Everybody can't be a pastor. You might be a minister. You can minister. Minister is just service. Everyone is a servant. If you're a minister, you're a servant. But everyone cannot be a pastor. Why? Why do you say that, Mia? Because you have to have the heart of a pastor. You have to have the heart of God to be able to pastor. You have to be able to love people to pastor. You have to be able to be out on duty 24 hours a day as a pastor. Amen. When something go wrong, when the internet go down, when something happen on the parking lot, you still have to be pastor and you still have to come. You still have to take care of the church. You still have to tend to the flock. You still have to get up here and preach even when you don't feel like it. That's when you have to have the heart of a pastor. So God already knows when he's looking at us, when we're growing in the faith, when we're growing as children. He already has our map planned out and know what we can handle. He already know what we can do. And that's what happened to David here, because David was the least expected one. I'm going to ask our pastor, if he will, to open us up with the story commentary that he has. Pastor, would you mind reading that for us?
Amen. The account of David and Goliath is one of the most famous in all literature. This is a tale of might versus right, in which the little guy beats up the bully. This story is part of our common culture. When the underdog wins a sporting event or an election, we say that David has defeated Goliath. The encounter between David and Goliath is part of the cosmic battle which began in Genesis chapter 3, when Satan defeated Adam and gained dominion over the earth. At that time, the Lord promised that a champion would come, born of a woman, who would crush the serpent, which is Satan. God later chose the family of Abraham, to whom he gave great land and people, to be the nation through which he would bring deliverance to humanity.
Mm-hmm. Amen. So this is good versus bad. Bully versus champ. You could call it any of those things, because it's exactly what David was going through as he was approaching this big obstacle. And if you ever, this story is so familiar that it's been taught, many have had it in Sunday schools over and over. So everybody should be familiar with the David and Goliath story. Our passage of scriptures are coming from 1 Samuel 17, 31 through 33, and I believe 34 through 37. And it reads, "And when the words were heard which David spoke, they rehearsed. They reported them before Saul." Rehearsed means they reported it to Saul. "And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail them. Let no man's courage fail because of him. Thy servant," he addressed himself as thy servant. You see how he addressed himself before the king? He understood the assignment. Can I say that? He understood who he was, and he understood the assignment that he was assigned king. "And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him." Now, Saul is trying to look at Saul right here. He is in the midst of wondering, like, what? He feeling like he's trying to discourage him. "For thou art but a youth." He's trying to remind him how young he is. "But you are but a youth, and he had a man of war from his youth." Now, let's go over to the second one. It says, "And David said unto Saul, Thy servant keep his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear." Now, he telling him his resume. So he said, "Since you telling me how young I am, let me tell you what I already done." And so he said, "A sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lion out of the flock. And I went out after him, and I smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me," what David said, "I caught him by his beard, and I smote him, and I slew him." David just telling his own testimony. "Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and his uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them." He already tell him, you going to get it too. "Seeing he had defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee." Amen. We see here that this scene is being set, that Saul is the king of Israel here. He was a military man, but he hadn't been faithful to God. And so here we got the Philistines got a champ. They got Goliath. And then we have the Israelites, they got David. And that was their champ. And so we see here that David is up against this huge giant, and he had been taunting people. See, that's what stuff do in your life. It gets so big sometimes it intimidates you, and you get fearful. And so David was this little young shepherd boy that was out in the field tending sheep, helping his dad. He was just minding his own business, and here he was being the one that was chosen to take on this huge task. And so his brothers, David had several brothers. Now, he could have been any one of them. But God said, no, it's going to be the one that everybody least expect.